This is Excel for Beginners, the complete course. It doesn't matter how little experience you have in Excel. I promise you that as you watch this video and follow along, that you will learn everything you need to know to get started using Excel effectively. Don't be intimidated by Excel. You can do it. And regardless of what version of Excel you're using, this video is what you need to get started using Excel. In this first section, we're going to look at how to create workbooks in Excel and how to save them, and also we'll learn the basics of what I call the anatomy of a spreadsheet and also the layout in Microsoft Excel. Let's get started. So whenever you start up Excel, it should take you first to a screen similar to this one. You may see a list of recently used spreadsheets, but you'll also have a way to create a new blank workbook. And I'm going to click here just to show that there will often also be templates that you can click to open up and use. You can also search, and there's a button here to more templates. But I'm just going to click blank workbook to open up a brand new, completely blank workbook in Microsoft Excel. And before we create anything in this workbook, let's talk about the anatomy of a spreadsheet. When you're working in Microsoft Excel, you will always have at least one sheet. You can see here in the lower left it says Sheet 1, but it's possible to have multiple sheets. And all of those sheets collectively together are called a workbook. Right now, my workbook just has the one spreadsheet. In Excel, spreadsheets are made up of columns. You can see this is column E, this is column C, this is column K. And when I select the letter for that column, the entire column gets selected. We also have rows in Excel. This is row 3, this is row 9, this is row 10. So every column has a column letter, and every row has a row number. Now, the intersection of a column and a row is what we call a cell. So, for example, this cell here is the intersection of column E and row 10. And an Excel workbook can contain over 17 billion cells. When you click on a cell, that becomes the active cell. Now, one of the most powerful things about the cells in Excel is that each one can be described by the intersection of its column and row. So for example, this is cell F8, and that's how you say it, F8. What cell is this? This is cell L4, and this is cell B7. Now, because of this fact that you can describe every single cell in Microsoft Excel, there's a lot of exciting possibilities that come about because of that, and you'll see that as you begin using Excel more. The next part of the anatomy of a spreadsheet is range. A range is a collection of cells that are generally grouped together. So I've clicked and dragged to select a group of cells in Excel. This is a range. And we can also describe every range in Microsoft Excel, once again using the column letters and the row numbers. The way you do this is you start in the upper left corner of the range and you describe that cell. So D4 through, and then you go to the lower right corner and describe that cell, J14. So the description of this range, its reference basically, is D4 through J14. And in Excel, the way you indicate through is with a colon. So D4 through J14. This is very important and will become more and more useful and important as you keep using Excel. So that is the anatomy of a spreadsheet. We have columns, we have rows, we have cells. The cell that you've selected is the active cell, and we have ranges. And all of this is done on a sheet or spreadsheet, or it's also called worksheet. You can add more worksheets by clicking this plus sign. Now I have 2 sheets, now I have 3 sheets, and the collection of all of these sheets together is what we call a workbook. Now, in addition to the anatomy of the spreadsheet, it's also important to understand the layout that we have to work with in Microsoft Excel. As you use Excel, you'll notice that there are tabs across the top of the screen. Generally, you'll start on the Home tab, but we also have the Insert tab, Page Layout tab, Data tab, etc. Whenever you click a tab, the tool buttons that you have here below change, and this part of the layout is called the ribbon. So if I click the Formulas tab, I get the Formulas ribbon. If I click the View tab, the ribbon completely changes. Now I have the View ribbon. And each ribbon is divided up into groups. You can see the groups are separated by lines. So I have a Charts group, I have a Tours group, a Comments group, a Tables group, etc. Now, not all of the options can fit in such a small group. For example, my charts group is not big enough to hold all of the options. So some of the groups have what I call a launch button, or sometimes it's called a dialog launcher, but I'll just call it a launch button. Not all of the groups have these launch buttons, but if you click on a launch button, it'll open up with even more options than could normally fit in the space provided on the ribbon. In addition to the tabs, the ribbons, and the groups, and the launch buttons, we also have some other layout features that you really need to know. Over here on the right, we have a scroll bar that you can use to move down your spreadsheet and up the spreadsheet. We also have a horizontal scroll bar. Underneath that, we have a zoom slider. If I slide this to the right, I zoom in on the spreadsheet. If I slide it to the left, I zoom out on the spreadsheet. Doing this does not change the data at all. It just zooms in or out. I have some view buttons here in the lower right corner. I can go to Page Break Preview or the Page Layout View, but most Excel users spend most of their time in Normal View. Here in the upper left, we have what's called the name box. Whenever you click on a cell, you can look in the name box to see the description of that cell or the name for that cell. And later you'll learn that this name box can do even more for you. Here at the top of my Excel layout, I have the Quick Access toolbar, and I have customized this. Yours may look different, but this gives me quick access to some of the most commonly used features in Microsoft Excel, my Save button, an Undo button, Auto Sum, and more. Here's my title for this spreadsheet. Over here I have my Close button. It looks like an X. If I click that, the spreadsheet will close. And then finally, here I have a very special bar called the Formula bar. In many cases, this is where you'll go to enter formulas into Microsoft Excel. So now that you know about the anatomy of a spreadsheet and also the layout in Microsoft Excel, you're completely ready to begin learning to use Excel. At this point, I'm going to click File and Save. But because this is my first time saving this document, it's having me do a Save As. I need to decide where to save this Excel workbook. So I'm going to click on Browse, and I'm just going to save it in My Documents. And I'll just write a name for it, Excel for Beginners, Complete Course, and Save.